This is the Mako V4, and I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. Start off first and foremost with the design of the Mako. It's always been a knife that I really like the design of, and the V4 definitely takes what I already loved and improved on it. I got black on black because of course I did, but it's very smooth, it's very sleek, and I think overall it's just a really cool looking trainer. The handles are nice and rounded. They are a square shape, but they still feel really nice in the hand. Everything is smooth, everything is well polished. I like it a lot. The gills are something introduced on the V4, and I actually really like them. A few people say that they can be a little higher up so they're in a better position for rollovers. I agree with that. I really like the gills being on the handles, but I do think they could be a little bit better positioned. They're in a good position for doing things like fanning, but that doesn't really matter giving you the extra grip for fanning because you don't need it. But if this was in more of a position suited for rollovers, I think it'd be a much better design choice. Of course, the biggest difference between the V3 and the V4 is that the handles are now channel. Now, on one hand, I understand why people don't like this. The Mako was Squid's only sandwich designed balisong, and I think making it channel might get rid of a little bit of that character that it used to have. It also provides a durability issue with the fin hitting the channel, which I'll talk about a little later. But overall, I actually do like the channel design, and I like channel knives in general. They typically provide better durability and better tolerances, and honestly, I just kind of like the way they feel. But making the Mako channel did kind of subtract a little bit of the personality that the Mako V3 and other models had. And of course this is a trainer, but it's also a bottle opener, so you know I had to test if it can actually open any bottles. So yeah, it can open bottles. I don't suspect why it wouldn't, but when you look past the actual design things, it's a pretty standard Squid Industries trainer. It's all just their standard aluminum, nothing is hardened, nothing's titanium, which I don't think you really should have expected. It is Squid's cheapest metal trainer option, but honestly, I don't think that's a bad thing. This thing feels like a Squid Industries product, and what I mean by that is that the tolerances are very good, it's very well put together, and I haven't had any issues with it so far. I think every single Squid product, as long as you get one that doesn't have a manufacturing defect, is really solid nowadays. They might not be the best options on the market, which I'll get to in a minute, but I really do think the Mako does hold up against some of the other options in Squid's lineup. I flipped a Squid trainer before and it feels the same level of premium that something like that does. Now, I've never tried a Triton, I have yet to try the Nautilus, I should be trying it soon, but at this point with the Squid knives I've flipped, I'm pretty confident that they all have that level of quality and solidness that I've come to associate them with. Now, the tolerances on this knife are very good. I take care of this thing, so it hasn't been dropped onto concrete or tile or hardwood or anything like that. It's only been carpet and snow a few times. So the tolerances on mine are actually holding together very well. I can get really good handle swing with minimal tap. Sometimes there is a little bit, but if I just want to tighten the handles just a little bit more, I can get rid of the tap completely. It's not perfect by any means. It still is a washer balisong, so there are some things that are inevitably going to happen. It's never going to be 100% perfect like a bushing or bearing balisong will, but for a washer only balisong, I'm honestly really impressed. Minimal play, it's really smooth, and it's really easy to tune the tap out of it. Like I said, nothing is hardened, so the blade can bend on you. That's a thing you gotta know if you're going to get one of these. But overall, durability wise, I know I mentioned that channel design usually provides a bit more durability, but I think this knife might be the exception. See, a big thing a lot of people have talked about is this dorsal fin on the safe edge of the knife. After you give it a lot of good flipping and the pins wear in a little bit, it will start to hit the inside of the channel. Now, this is where a lot of the breaking issues that people are having is occurring. The dorsal fin is hitting the inside of the channel so often that it eventually causes a dent and eventually causes the handles to break. Now, realistically, mine barely has a dent at all, but that's because I take care of this knife. If you beat the crap out of this knife, there is a good chance you will start to see that dent and you might run into durability issues. But if you do keep this knife in good condition and you do make sure to take care of it, I find the durability to be actually really good. This thing is holding up very well. I have no tap issues. I have no handle slap issues. Granted, I've only had it for a few weeks, but as of right now, it's still holding up for what I've put it through. I've been flipping this thing absolutely non-stop since I got it, and I've been learning a lot of things. I learned how to do ladders on this thing, so you can imagine it flew out of my hands a ton of different times. But durability-wise, it's really holding up, honestly. But none of that matters if it doesn't flip good. So let's talk about the flipping. Touchy subject because everyone likes something a little bit different and some people value certain flipping aspects over others. But for me, this is one of the most fun trainers for me to flip. It's got a very, very slight handle bias. It's neutral enough that it's good to learn tricks on, which is good because I'm still pretty much a beginner, yet it's still got enough of a handle bias to really hug your fingers while you're doing things like chaplains, rollovers, and things like that. It's got a good weight at 4.25 ounces. I find the weight on top of the size, because it's a very standard, it's a pretty long knife, and the slight handle bias makes it just overall very flowy and very fun to flip, and I have no issues doing a lot of tricks on it. Now, it is a channel design, so you'll notice these two screws on the bottom kind of aren't doing anything, and they're basically weight screws. You can remove them if you want, and the knife becomes a lot more neutral. I tried this. I can understand if you like it, but personally, it's really not for me. If you like a neutral knife, I would get it and take these two out. But if you do like the handle bias, I'd keep them in. I ended up keeping them in. They're both good. It still flips really good either way, but I ended up just liking the handle bias more. It is just a bead blasted finish, and there's nothing really special going on the bottom of the handles. There's no jimping, there's no texture milling or anything like that. So it is a little slippery. Like I said, learning ladders was a little bit of a problem, just because I don't have the finger strength to do them consistently yet, and having a slippery knife just kind of adds on to that. Now, it's not as slippery as something like the Glider Arctic because that bead blasted finish does give it a little bit of a grippiness, but it's nowhere near the grip of something like a G10 lined balisong like the Nautilus, or something with texture milling like the Squid Trainer. I've noticed something really weird with the bead blasted finish, and that is depending on the humidity, that'll really change how grippy it is. If it's really dry and my hands are really dry, this thing will just completely slide right out of my hands. But if it's humid like it is now, it feels really sticky and almost like it's glued to my hands in a good way. It's not sticky in a bad way, it just gives it a lot more grip. So if you live in a humid climate, that might be a little better for you, but if you live in somewhere that's really dry, right now it's winter up here in New York, so it is very, very dry outside. So this thing can be a mess to flip when it's really dry. Overall, for the money, I think it's a very solid option. It's a very fun flipper. I like to flip it a lot. It's held its tolerances really well, and I can definitely see myself flipping it for a lot longer. But the big question is, should you buy one? And who should buy one? Well, I think the most important thing to know is that the Mako V4 won't hold up as a beater, and I would not recommend it as a beater. It does have some durability issues, and overall a non-hardened blade and just a washer pivot system means that if you do beat it, you drop it on concrete a lot, you throw this thing around, it's kind of gonna fall apart on you. It's gonna gain a lot of tap that you can't tune out. The handles might bend a little bit. The blade's of course going to bend a little bit, and it is not going to be that level of quality that you want. So as a beater, I wouldn't really recommend it. But what I would recommend this knife for is if you keep your knives in good shape. I've kept this thing in good shape, and it has not caused me a single problem whatsoever, and it is my favorite flipper that I have. And the Mako is $100. I think like $115 or $120 if you get the inked version like I did. So what can you get in that price range? You have the Glider Arctic, which is one of the best beater balisongs I've ever seen, and is hardened blade blade bushings, flips amazing. I have one, I love it, and it's about the same price. There's also things like the NRB Vortex, which also have bushings. I've never flipped one, I'm not too sure about them, but I know a lot of people really, really love them. So that's also an option to consider. And I think it'll really depend on what you like out of a balisong. I bought a Mako because I already have a beater, I already have my Arctic, and I really like the design of the Mako. I think it's a cool knife, it's very unique, and it's very much something that suits me as a flipper. Slight handle bias, still fun to learn on, it's a little bit lighter than most other knives, and it's just overall a really cool thing to have. And I went with the Mako over something like the Vortex because honestly, I'm the type of person who flipping isn't everything for me. Yeah, if a knife flips good, that's very important, but I also like to have my knives as not sort of a fashion statement, but also like a style thing. All of the knives I want fit a very similar style, and I feel like developing a style of not only flipping, but also a collection that is your own is fairly important. It's one of the things that got me into flipping in the first place, is that some of these knives look super cool and I just wanted to own them. And that's one of the main reasons I bought the Mako. I just really liked the way it looked and I really liked the vibe it gave off, and it turns out it's also just a very excellent flipper. So it really is personal preference, but after having this thing for a few weeks and flipping it pretty much non-stop, I would recommend it. If you keep your knives in good shape and you just want a really cool balisong to show around and to have with you, I really do think it's a good buy. Tolerances are holding up pretty good. It's fun to flip, it's light, it's got a little bit of a handle bias. I really like it a lot. Again, it is personal preference and it is up to you to know what you're buying and make that choice for yourself. But if you're thinking of getting a Mako, I highly recommend one. Just make sure to take care of it and you will be a-okay. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you and I will see you all again very soon.